Okay, so today is the 8th of May 2022, and it is the birthday of Pierre de Meuron, one of the two partners that created this quite well-known architecture office, Herzog and de Meuron. So let's wish happy birthday to Pierre de Meuron, and let's talk a little bit about them, and then show their most important works. So Herzog and de Meuron, Basel Ltd, or Herzog and de Meuron Architekten, is a Swiss architecture firm with its head office in Basel, Switzerland. The careers of founders and senior partners Jacques Herzog, born on April 19th, and Pierre de Meuron, born May 8th, 1950, closely paralleled one another, with both attending the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, ETH, a very important architecture school in Zurich. They are perhaps best known for their conversion of the giant Bankside power station in London to the new home of Tate Modern. Well, this is not entirely true. They have many other buildings. But anyway, this is, I guess, the one who wrote this text is probably British. Jacques Herzog and Pierre de Meuron have been visiting professors at the Harvard University Graduate School of Design since 1994 and professors at ETH Zurich since 1999. Herzog and de Meuron was founded in Basel, as we know, but in 1978, in 2001, they were awarded the Pritzker Prize, the highest of honors in architecture. Jury chairman Carter Brown commented, "One is hard to put to think of any architects in history that have addressed the integument of architecture with greater imagination and virtuosity." This was in reference to HDM's, that is Herzog and de Meuron's, innovative use of exterior materials and treatments such as seal-screened glass. Architecture critic and Pritzker juror Ada Louise Huxtable summarized ADM's approach concisely. They refined the traditions of modernism to elemental simplicity while transforming materials and surfaces through the exploration of new treatments of techniques. In 2006, the New York Times Magazine called them one of the most admired architecture firms in the world. So here they are. On the left, Herzog, on the right, de Meuron. Happy birthday, Mr. de Meuron. Here they are again. On the left, Jacques Herzog. On the right, Pierre de Meuron. And again, here in the same format, on the left, Herzog, on the right, de Meuron. The Berlin Museum, I will show works by them, not in a chronological order. Order is, you know, I'm not totally happy with this presentation, but I think you at the end of it, you'll have a very comprehensive understanding and view of the oeuvre. This is a work which was not built yet. It's you know, it's a project for a very large storage space, so to speak. You know, it's like art depot in a way. It's supposed to be a museum. I suspect that in their work there is some kind of curious intermingling of innocence and cynicism, which would have attracted the appreciation of someone like Friedrich Nietzsche. But I don't know. We'll move onwards, and we'll discuss some works. You know, like for example, in this work, of course, a museum needs white walls on which to hang wild paintings. Please be kind and turn off the microphone. I hear you know, a voice if possible, unless you want to say something. Thank you. So this is a skyscraper in New York. At the time when I made this presentation was in the process of being built. you know, with spectacular, you know, elements based on expensive technology, and of course, not everyone would be, you know, capable of acquiring an apartment in this building designed by Herzog and de Meuron. What can we do? Inequalities in the world always existed and will always exist. But as you can see, it is true that New York City doesn't have earthquakes, but you know, technology is very capable to handle, you know, appreciable cantilevers, and so the rules of engineering are broken often by courageous engineers and by courageous architects. You see, a skyscraper is a sign of masculinity, is a sign of, you know, virility, of vigor. But here you see the meanderings of the perimeter line, you know, which is not straight. So this could evoke some kind of an hesitation, you know. Maybe we could call this skyscraper a doubting skyscraper, a Hamletian skyscraper. Hamlet asked himself, to be or not to be? Well, maybe this skyscraper also kind of asks the same question, to keep growing upwards or not? So there are hesitations, and I actually like these hesitations. You know, it's a sign of humanizing the skyscraper, because many times skyscrapers are very arrogant in the, you know, moving upwards without any kind of hesitation. The concert hall in Hamburg, which I'm sure you know, you have seen, it's a very publicized work. Yes, it is spectacular, is showy, to use, you know, maybe you know, a non-academic word. At the top is, you know, the spectacle of mimicking maybe a ship, you know, or a boat on the water. The scale of this building essentially is still a box of large dimensions, but with subtle things, treatment of the facades, which is very special, and then of course the roof. It's an expensive, well, it's an expensive city, and it's an expensive building. You know, not every country in the world could afford such a building, and not every city, but Hamburg, I guess, does. So, you know, it's another, the truth is, today, almost anything can be built. Is this building sustainable? No, of course not. But at the time when it was built, there wasn't so much concern with the, you know, sustainability. Is this facade interesting? Yes, I think it is. You know, and it is, you know, exquisitely executed. You know, I mean, look at these windows. Again, I mean, let's call them windows. You know, the technological sophistication that exists today, if you are not trained to work with such a technology, you don't even dream of doing what they did here. You know, that's why I'm a great adversary of the fact that, you know, we still employ the T-square and the rectangle. But with the T-square and the rectangle, you say goodbye to this sort of thing that Herzog and de Meuron were able to do. It's just impossible. You have to use very sophisticated present technology, and to be very accustomed to it. You know, not to work on Photoshop or a SketchUp, you know, little things. This is not playing a game. This is a building that needed extreme rigor, and within that rigor, there was found great freedom. And even, you know, look at this elevation, is surreal. It is surreal. It is surreal because the surfaces are complex, and the materials that I used. We are going to see other, details of this, quite special. I mean, look at this prefabricated fragment of the elevation. Can you do it with a T-square and a rectangle? No, you can't. I mean, yes, you can sketch, but from here to transform it into a built reality very, very rigorously, you need the digital technologies. It's impossible otherwise. And not at the level of primitive digitalism, like some AutoCAD, or no, you cannot do this with something like this. You have to be very knowledgeable. You look, each one is different, and the subtleties of this elevation, of this facade are amazing. I mean, you have zones of obscurity in a way, and kind of a fogginess, and then you have these openings which are all, this is different from this and from this. They are all, so there is great variety here. How do you do this with manual means? It's impossible. And the level of the complexity of the work, it's anyway. I think certain schools of architecture should reconsider their relationship with the digital technology. Start from the first year, from the first day of the first year, and study seriously, like it happens in Vienna, where they study 16 hours a day, the newest softwares and technologies. I mean, you can imagine these people, because a software is like a language, like a foreign language. The quicker you study it, and the more you practice it, the better you are at it. If we keep postponing learning the language, we'll never master it. Anyway, what can we say? It's another level of doing architecture. Herzog and de Meuron are able to bring in the work something that I would connect with surrealism. There is this oniric quality in the work, and this is not easy to do. Yes, they do have a mundane side to their work, and you can see it even in this interior here. There is mundanity, but there is also surrealism. And sometimes, yes, I guess they intersect or they intermingle. This is, I imagine, a model of the building at the Venice Biennial. It's not in Hamburg. Okay. They are, in a way, some kind of magicians, in the sense that they bring, I was mentioning this surrealistic, surreal quality in the work. And there is this aspect which could also irritate those who are more so-called ethical or stringent moralists. But again, I think the work is complex, and sometimes certain works are better than others, but they are taking risks. And I think one of the major risks they took is the reconsideration of the ornament, because they do employ ornaments. And I mean, look, even here, this is ornamental, without doubt. In many quarters, the ornament is still, taboo. But the truth of the matter is, you cannot have structure without ornament. This is something that even Patrick Schumacher said. Structure and ornament should come together and simultaneously. Unfortunately, in many parts, of this world, there is an obsession with structure, and again structure, but no one talks about ornament. Well, how come? Architecture from the very beginning, from times immemorial, had ornament part of it. Always. Now, it's true that the beginning of the 20th century, there was a reaction to some excesses of the 19th century, and there was some legitimacy for renouncing ornament for a while. But even Adolf Loos used ornament because he used a very rich marble, which was naturally ornamented or decorative. And so did Miss van der Rohe. Miss van der Rohe in the Barcelona pavilion has parts of walls of large dimensions, extremely decorated, in the sense that he used an expensive marble which was very, very ornamented, naturally ornamental. Here they are on the building site. They must feel very accomplished. I mean, try to put yourselves in their place. These people build whatever they want to build. I'm sure they even reject commissions because they are flooded with commissions. So, and architecture for them is an adventure. It's a creation, like this one for the Tate Modern London extension. This is a project they did, but it was not built. Something else was built. But even this one, which was not built, is interesting. The one they built is this one, and this one is not less interesting. It's different, but again, these people are actually not signature architects. They don't have a style, unless we think that the style in their case is some kind of a hybrid, complex intertwining of various influences and ideas and so on. Look, even here there is ornament or decoration, the way they play with the skin of the building. And this is important, I think. It's the decorative aspect of the work, the ornamental part of the work, I think, it matters. Otherwise, the volume is sculptural, is virile, is vigorous, and so on. But in detail, you saw there is the richness of the weaving of smaller parts. So there is a texture. The facade has a texture. It's not a sleek surface. So Herzog and de Meuron at the Tate Gallery in London, the extension. Now the Tate Modern Switch House. Well, this building existed. They only worked within this building, and then they created the extension. Sorry, this should not have been here. It's a déjà vu, the concert hall in Hamburg. But let's look at this, unexpected, accidental presence here of this building in this presentation here. Now, the CaixaForum in Madrid, a building done for the same forum, Caixa, I don't know if I pronounce well, was also done by Carme Pinós, a very important Catalan architect. But this is in Madrid by Herzog and de Meuron. Personally, I have some resistance to this building. It's provocative in the sense that, it's almost that the building is elevated from the earth, from the ground, and you go underneath, you access it from underneath. And to me is a little bit pretentious and even ominous, because it's very dark. It's almost like you are going through some kind of a dark tunnel or some kind of a parking lot. And yes, the ceiling is interesting because it's sculptured. but it's still, in my opinion, heavy. You know, it is as if you are underground. Now, I don't know why they did so. I also don't know why they cut the elevation of the old building in this way. So this is actually almost like a house without foundation, without resting on the ground. It's unnatural, but they are very often you know, working within the field of artificialness, or yeah, there is some sort of you know, I don't know very well how to describe it. There is some mannerism here. There is some kind of you know, if you think about mannerist painting, Italian painting, for example, and here we see you know, artificiality brought to the art of architecture, which, you know, until recently would not have dared to do something like this, you know, to cut a building at the bottom in this way, because, you know, they cut it as if it was paper, this wall, and it's not paper. It has weight, doesn't it? So I don't know. I don't agree with everything they did. I like the fact, again, that they bring in ornament, like you see it here. Look at this wall, you know, it's floating, you know, it's unnatural. It's, you know, I find it strange. Maybe something like this irritates Kenneth Frampton when he's, you know, resistant to their architecture and their work. But there are many explorations in their work, and you know, this is just one aspect. They are not easily pinned down. On the other hand, we saw the exterior of the building, but the interior is very sleek and very whitish and white. And to me, it's very septic. It's very, I don't know, sterile in a way, you know, frigid, in my opinion. And but this kind of architecture can also be seen all the time in the works of Zaha Hadid, whom I admire, of course, and it's dynamic, but it's not earthy and it's not raw. So there is something here that at a deeper, you know, level of the critical discourse could, I'm not so sure that could receive a total acceptance. Now, of course, I am subjective. I am only airing what I think and feel. Someone could think and feel differently. Look, what is here on the right is some kind of a vertical forest, which is very fashionable these days, because we kill the real forests, which are not vertical but horizontal, and now we climb our walls with green because we need oxygen, right? So here it is. You know, I guess this is also their work, you know, and I don't have the, you know, the direct experience of this building. I never went to see it in Madrid, but it's something here that somehow irritates me a little bit, because I mean, you know, think of these poor plants, you know, they grow horizontally from the wall, and it's, I don't know, this is the way to respect nature, you know, to have it, to create some kind of a rug, so-called natural rug on the large surface of wall, and suspend it vertically in this way. Maybe I'm not courageous enough, or but there is something that I look at with suspicion. In the same way, cutting the building here at the bottom also I find problematic. Is it necessary, this level of artificiality? Well, artificiality is here too, because clearly this is not what God made. You know, this is done by man. We, you know, brought vegetation to this world as if we are the rulers of the world. But are we the rulers of the world? We can't even stop the war in Ukraine, and we kill each other like, you know, madmen. On the other hand, embroidering the facade and bringing ornament to it, I think it's a good thing, because it brings some sensitivity to the, you know, to the walls, to architecture. When I said that earlier that somehow in their work, but I don't think I expressed properly what I thought. I often or sometimes think that there is more cynicism in their work than innocence. Like here, I do see some cynicism, you know, this ominous entrance into the museum from a space which appears to be kind of like a parking, you know, underground almost parking, but it's not a parking. It's look at it, you know. I mean, at night, or maybe not, well, at any time of the day, you might even be afraid to go there. You know, it's a dark space. Maybe it's a narrative they try to promote. You know, I don't know. You know, like, you know, going into the darkness of the tunnel, which the artist has to confront in order to, you know, arrive at the light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know. I don't know, but were they obliged to do this by some functional constraints? I don't know. It's hard for me to think so, though. Anyway, again, ornament, or the erosion of ornament, or the erosion of the grid, which again I like, and I like the fact that they sabotage systems, although they employ sometimes systems, like here is the system of the grid, and then they break it. So they erode it, where so they bring the capriciousness of art or artistry or the artist into the system and breaks it. The Barcelona Forum, another building with a, you know, audacious cantilever, another building with a certain level of ornamentation. You see it here. Another building with a rather dark, you know, underbelly, so to speak. And again, ornament on the ceiling, on the walls. It's an interesting building. The truth is they build interesting buildings. They don't leave you indifferent. Now, they like the triangle as well. They proposed for Paris and it was approved. They probably built it, the Parisians, a very tall, big building, you know, pyramid-like, triangular. We are going to see it. Ornament, no? What else is here but ornament? The Vitra house in Germany, you probably know it. Again, talking about cantilevered parts of buildings or buildings. I like the fact that they don't really repeat themselves, that they continuously explore new things, and you know, that it's refreshing to see a practice so vast, you know, doing a variety of things. Like, for example, what does this have to in common with, you know, the concert hall in Hamburg, or with even with a museum in Madrid that we saw? Nothing. One thing is for sure: they are playful, and you cannot be creative without being playful. And they take risks. Well, they can afford it now because they can build anything they wish. Here they are. They don't seem very happy otherwise. I think of the two, but I could be wrong. You know, I always felt that somehow Herzog is the big designer, and the Meuron is more the one with so-called common sense who balances things. But who knows? I could be wrong. But I think yes, even looking at their faces, you know, Herzog is the Magister Ludi. He's the, and you can tell looking at his face that you know, you could expect almost anything from him, good but also bad. Anyway, here is a stage design because they also do stage design, and it's provocative, just like the buildings. They are not afraid of ruins, and you know, again, a more placid architect would not have envisioned something like this, but they are not placid. This is the Barcelona. So they did this, I guess, in that large building in Barcelona that we talk about. This is also an ornamental wall or ornamented wall underneath the same building. This it's another intrusion. This building refuses to be done in our talk. It shows up from time to time with different pictures, which is maybe good. You see the complexity of the roof work. You know, it's you know, this is not this was not, it's not, it's, you know, we can do something like this, but to do this, it's a different story. It is a difficult work, and it was built, as you know. Now, the National Olympic Stadium in Beijing, China, which is called the Nest, was it inspired by the nests of birds? Maybe. Here they didn't work together alone. They worked together with this artist, famous Chinese artist, Ai Weiwei. And you see they enjoy a big meal here. Maybe they are in China here. And he's an artist, but also an architect. He also built, I made a presentation on him too. And we are going to see another building, which I like very much, by Herzog and de Meuron, in a park for sculptural architectural works that Weiwei promoted and developed. But the stadium of National Stadium of Beijing or China is also quite a piece of work. Is it sustainable? Of course not. I mean, these are huge. I don't know if I have details here, but these are, you know, these metallic elements, the carcass of the stadium. They have huge dimensions, you know, I mean, thickness, and you know, it's all metal. What can we say? Look, here you see it. You know, you see the human silhouettes, and look what's going on here. It's incredible. They built it. Former communists. No. I mean, China was, in fact, if there was a truly communist country in the world, was China. I wonder what Mao would think or would have thought if he saw just this work by the corrupted Westerners building in Beijing. The Museum of Culture in Basel. This is also an interesting exercise in you know, mimicking the medieval spirit, but in a very, you know, contemporary way. The forms could mimic maybe sloping roofs, but look at the materials they employed, and even the roofing has, you know, some kind of a ornamental design. At a superficial look, you might not notice that, and this is actually a quality, that this building, you know, at the first sight, you might not notice that is actually very different from the older buildings around it. But in essence, it's very different. And you see the roof is very important in the work of Herzog and de Meuron. So yes, it is a creation. It is a creation with a high level of artificiality, but I wouldn't dismiss it. Quite the opposite. I think it's theatrical. I think their architecture is theatrical. Now the skyscraper not skyscraper. It's an office building which confuses one because of what happens at the level of the eye. Look at that incredible scribbling, if I am to call it so. This, if anyone had doubts about the ornamentalization of architecture of Herzog and de Meuron, here they should leave the doubts aside, because it's very clear they are enjoying creating neurotic ornaments. The building is actually rather Cartesian, but this curtain, ornamental curtain, is definitely something which I could describe as some sort of a neurotical Art Nouveau or Jugendstil. But look at the building above. It's a different kind of spirit. What is happening at the bottom is clearly, belongs to a different system, if we are to call it a system. It's the knot, it's in a way the reaction to the excesses of reason. So then you bring in the scandal that the knot, the scandal for reason, for intelligence, if you want. It's a scribbling. It's a scribbling which is bringing in unreason or irrationality through the ornament. They experiment a lot, and it's good that they do. We already saw this, but we see a few more images of the Hamburg Philharmonie. I think they also enjoy conflict. There are even here, there are dichotomies. The dialectics between this type of carcass or enclosure and this one. And, there is tension, just like in Madrid, the CaixaForum. Now, this is I really like this building they built in the architecture park, Jinhua Architecture Park in China, which was developed by that artist who was together with them around that very attractive dinner table. The reading space, they call it, from 2006. It's a contorted space. It's a labyrinthical space. They call it the Zen space. I don't know if it's too Zen, but here is Mr. Pierre de Meuron. Happy birthday to you, sir. You see what they build? They bring in, this is a chains architecture, is an aleatory architecture. Is not governed by reason. It's free from the determinism of reason. And I think it's, in a way, it's a found architecture. I like this kind of, well, some I think it's a sculpture. Well, if it is a sculpture, it was built by two architects. It's a sculptural work, but no one could contest that it is engaging, attractive, it's inciting. You feel like going in, exploring it. Again, former communists built it. So those who claim that because of the communism, which collapsed 33 years ago, we still cannot, we are still traumatized and we cannot experiment and we cannot do interesting things, they are wrong. How come the Chinese can? This should not have been here, but I guess only to show the participation of aleatory configurations, ornamental configurations here in Madrid, and here another wall that is animated by aleatory ornamentation. Now this building in Tokyo for Prada, it's a jewel. You can imagine, like most jewels, it is expensive, very expensive, but Prada, I'm sure it can afford it. It afforded it because, their own prices are, surreal. It's an exquisite box, where they introduce diagonals and the system, the carcass is not strictly, there is a system, but it has fluctuations and the lyricism of betrayal, as I call it, because the diagonal in general is a betraying line because it is not respecting the vertical and the horizontal grid. And it's like, almost in a way, well, simplified, some kind of a web, some kind of a, the web of a spider, if you want. This carcass, was it worthy for what these people pay homage to, so to speak? All these shoes, expensive like hell, I mean, I don't know. It's for a different clientele, and it's for different purpose than most of us are accustomed to address in life. Prada in Tokyo by Herzog and de Meuron. Well, architects always were, companions of those in power and those who are rich. And so this building, which probably you don't even feel like entering if you are not equipped with a large amount of money on you. The Vitra house we already saw, but now we see a few other pictures filled with chairs because it's a design museum. We saw it already, but certain buildings are shown twice. As I told you from the beginning, this presentation is a little bit, but maybe in this very zigzagging, there is some value. Maybe I am trying to see the positives in the negatives. So this is the Vitra Museum. It does bother me a little bit that you see the exterior is so, sculpturally black, and then the interior is so conveniently and white, so almost boringly, white. It's so bourgeois and so predictable, the interior, in my opinion. The Beirut terraces, this was a project. I don't think it was built in Beirut. Luxe, calme, volupté, the good life, for those who don't have to go to work, who just contemplate the sea from through completely, transparent wall. There are not even mullions. And of course, they have plenty of air conditioning because otherwise you'd melt down in the summer and freeze in the winter. Although maybe in Beirut you don't freeze in the winter, I don't know. In the present, you don't freeze even in Bucharest in the winter because there is no winter. Paris Tower, this is a proposal that recently was approved by the officials in Paris, and I guess it will be built. It is not a modest building, but then the buildings of Herzog and de Meuron never claimed modesty and never addressed it. I don't know. I mean, again, it's a building that doesn't question at all, the demagogy of glass. Do you see any open window here? No, of course not. I don't even know if there are windows. It's all closed in and all based on air conditioning. The amount of air conditioning that this building requires is immense. The expenditures are immense. The effects on the climate and the disastrous effect on sustainability are for us to imagine. But I guess, you know, they don't care about such things, or at least they didn't at that time. The interior is rather banal, you know, it's mundane, it's slick, it's probably comfortable. You can breathe in artificially pumped air. And if you have the money to sit there on the bench or, you know, to look through your bag while the workers of the world are in factories, you do so, of course. I don't know. It is a world that to me is problematic. But you see Tour Eiffel through the glassed walls of your beautiful penthouse or apartment. And of course, you don't have to go to work. And you are just with your lover and you both romantically contemplate the romantic city, the city of lights. Well, I don't know. It's hard for me to be totally accepting of this, but I think a certain level of being critical is necessary. It's another building, yes, and which of course tries to compete with Tour Eiffel. Paris was protesting violently against Tour Eiffel. Maybe they protested or will protest against this one too, but the so-called maddening progress of humankind continues. The assault on the sky, the assault on you know, on the fresh air, the assault on scale, because this is it's not a building that considers, you know, the height of the trees or the height of the human being. It's a building which wants to go to the sky as much as possible because height is prestige. And, you know, the real estate speculators can ask, you know, adequate prices for what they sell, because it's about selling and buying. That's what it is, high capitalism. Glass, and again, glass, air conditioning, people who don't have to work unless they work from home, moving money from one part to another, you know, through financial speculations and so on. 1111 in Miami, this is a parking structure, you know, kind of a garage if you want. I like it, you know, you don't expect a garage or a parking to look like this, but then, you know, in essence, it's a parking. It's not, you know, some kind of a temple for an unknown god. No, the god is actually very known. Its Majesty, the car. Perez Art Museum in Miami as well. Interesting building. They are able to change all the time. It's not bad, you know. It's skillfully done. They obviously have skill in their office, and they have skilled designers. They have more than 400 employees. So there. Anyway, it's a museum. We know how museums are, rooms, you know, that we fill with art. And then we try to make an interesting, you know, thing out of the museum to look engaging. And it is engaging and it is interesting. And I like the fact that it's not monolithical. You know, it's kind of broken down to various fragments, although it is based on rectangularity. I look at the cars, you know, they're all hidden underneath, but not so hidden actually, you know, underneath the building. it's a nice image in a way. No, you have the sculpture, or you know, the installation. You have the wild trees and the wild vegetation, and through it you see the broken Cartesianism of Herzog and de Meuron. There are interesting things, it's true. And then some plants grow on the vertical elements of the building. Now the Parrish Art Museum, this is a very different work. And again, it testifies to their ability to change all the time. This is built in the United States, the Parrish Art Museum. There are two very long prisms with sloping roofs. Rather unusual. I guess they had all the space in the world there to extend ad infinitum. They do like even this archetypal traditionalism, you know, like a sloping roof with two surfaces. We are going to see another building like this, which, so they explore various kinds of architecture. This is more archetypal, more simple in a way, but still with a level of drama because of the dimensions of the building. And also even, yeah, the simplicity in a way, which is, you know, some kind of archaic modernism. So this is in the United States. This was an earlier scheme they did, but it was not built. But I don't dislike what I see, you know, because of this kind of, like in some works by Su Fujimoto, this aleatory play with various prisms of various sizes and arrangements is not bad. Anyway, I like even this view, you know, it's powerful. And as I said, it's archaic, it's primal, it's Ur-architecture. Here it is, you know, from one of the many books published on them as young, you know, the portrait of the architects as young men from 1979 to 1980. They just finalized their studies at the ETH in Zurich. The Slow Food Pavilion, Milan Expo 2015. I don't know what to say about, you know, the so-called slow food. I guess, you know, it's an exhibition in Milan, the city of exhibitions. Yeah, you know, all kinds of, you know, advertising essentially for all kinds of companies. Now, Feltrinelli Portavolta in Milan, an interesting building actually, this one by Herzog and de Meuron. You know, it's some kind of a you know, hybrid building obtained from some formal investigations that we just saw in that work in the United States for that long elongating museum. But then there is here much more glass. It's an urban context. It's not in nature. It doesn't leave you indifferent. They do interesting works. That's the truth. They love the termination of the building with kind of a sloping roof like here, and the power of the triangle. So this is the building. You know, it looks enticing and other even from the air. But again, you know, if we are confronting this architecture and this building with the questions of sustainability, it will not pass the exam. You know, it's literally, honestly telling us this building without air conditioning cannot function. So a few texts, you know, evaluating their works. We are delighted to be the winners of this year's Riba Jenks Award. We feel especially happy about that prize since it honors theory as well as practice. Despite the many texts and books we have published, we still have doubts about the longevity of texts written by architects. The title of a few books may be remembered over time. The relevance of their content, though, ages faster than expected. We therefore always did our best to not separate theory from the built work. Buildings don't follow theory, but yes, the best buildings always allow for theoretical interpretations of all kinds. Herzog and de Meuron had the widest approach to architecture, varying their style for each job. In this sense, they epitomize the global search for an architecture of pluralism, one flexible enough for very different cultures. While a recognizable attitude runs through the work and the commitment to intelligent design, it is the creative flexibility which stands out above other practices today. The high quality of the work is as notable as the width, the amount of production as much as its personality. This is due partly to the working methods of dividing a large office of more than 400 people into small, highly motivated design teams and creating the collegial atmosphere of a research institute. The conceptual innovations combined with high turnover are highly risky, yet they have continued to produce architecture of the highest standard, rigorous and iconic, and plain or ornamented, depending on the task at hand. The small medical work rehab is exemplary. The open access Schaulager Museum is interesting and provocative, and the Vitra House is funny, modern, and to the point. Interesting the presence of these two words together, funny and modern. Herzog and de Meuron deserve a lifetime award as a local Basel office and a global practice. They seem to have finally squared the circle of large-scale architectural production. Now, this is the Center for Spinal Cord and Brain Injuries, the Rehab Basel. And I like the fact that they can also do buildings which are, almost, I could call them compassionate. And in this case, it was supposed to be compassionate because it was for, destined for people with severe, affections, serious illnesses. So I guess they know when to not to do extravagant gestures, and in this case was not the place to engage in extravagance. Now, this museum, which I mentioned in the text that I read earlier, the Schaulager Museum, I like, I like this, this capriciousness that sometimes shows up in the work, like, this cut into the wall, which is, contradicting even, dogmatic structural things. It's an interesting building. Actually, there are two buildings. It's this one, and then the larger one in front of it. Sorry. Here it is. Somehow this elevation made me think of the chapel Notre Dame du Haut in Ronchamp by Le Corbusier. I don't know if they thought of it when they did it. The building is different, but there is something here that made me think about that building. This is a museum, and I think it has qualities, and it has again this dichotomy, the dialectics between here you have the white wall, here you have a dark wall. Here you have a white large alcove, and then you have in front of it, an intrusion of a building that seems to be somehow oppositional to this white alcove. It's an architecture of a certain complexity, a certain, level of artificiality. Here we see this elevation recalling what they did in the CaixaForum in Madrid. Yeah, so all in all, their work is indeed quite different very often from other works. It's not really a signature work, although one could discern certain trademarks, so to speak. I would mention a certain level of artificiality, an interest in ornament, a certain cynicism sometimes, or a dark playfulness. The new Vitra Design Museum, this is also the Vitra, we saw the other building, those cantilever buildings. This is something very different. Look at this. This is almost, Heinrich Tessenov. It's an architecture so primal, so simple that you wonder, is this the building by Zaha Hadid at Vitra? I think it is one of her earlier works, if not the earliest. So Herzog and de Meuron and Zaha. Yeah, this is a fire station by Zaha. And this is the building by Herzog and de Meuron, working with bricks. Look at this. This is almost surreal, a different kind of surrealism, almost metaphysical architecture, kind of like certain paintings with architecture by Giorgio de Chirico. The interior is primal, no? White walls, the sloping roof, and so on. Now, what is inside is the madness of production. I am a great, advocate of creativity, but sometimes creativity could lead to madness. Is this Torres Otsas? I guess. Some of these designers here, we have Alvarado, and they all designed chairs, furniture, famous architects or famous designers. Yeah, humankind, the restless humankind. Thank you and happy birthday, Pierre de Meuron.